Alright, so today we're going to talk about the absolute value functions. So these absolute value bars are what we're going to focus on. I'm going to show you the steps for how to type this right into the calculator. So the first thing that you want to do on your calculator is press the y equals button in order to graph it. Once you get into the y equals, in order to do like absolute value, you press the math button. So I'll show you that. If you press math, then you press the right arrow to where it says num, like for number. And then it's just number 1. It says ABS, stands for absolute value. And then obviously you type in your equation. So our equation is the absolute value of x. So we'll have x. And then to close your absolute value, you need the other parenthesis. And then we can just graph it. Shapes of these graphs are in a V shape. So they're like parabolas, except parabolas like have that U shape. These are just like straight V's. In order to graph them, we can go to the table, second table. I don't know, I'm going to start over here at -5, up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -4, 4, -3, 3, -2, 2, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. That's all just coming right here from the table. So they make a V shape. If you notice, what's really cool about these graphs is if we had graphed the line y equals x, just the regular y equals x line, it's a line like this where the slope is 1. These graphs are the exact same thing, except it's taking this negative part right here and it's reflecting it up, like it's making the negative numbers positive to make it look like this. So the red part would be the absolute value. Kind of cool. The domain for these graphs is always all real numbers. And the range is like parabolas when it's like this, when it's a minimum, it'll be y is greater than or equal to your number. If for some reason it was flipped over and had a maximum, it would be y is less than or equal to your number. So ours is a minimum, so it's going to be y is greater than or equal to. The number that goes in there is whatever the plus number is on the outside. This has a +0. So it's going to be greater than or equal to 0. That's what's going to go there. The point, if I meant vertex by this, in our case it's just the vertex 0, 0. Not too bad so far. The next two are similar things, just different graphs, so we'll graph these. We want to press y equals. We want to get the absolute value bars in there. So again, if we follow our steps, it's math, num, the right arrow over to num, number 1 is absolute value. And we have 1/2, so it's 1 divided by 2x minus 1. I'll close the parenthesis at the end of the absolute value sign. Graph it. this graph is like wider, and it got moved over to the right a little bit. To graph it, we can use the table, second table. Let's do -2, 2, -1, 1.5, 0, 1, 1 and 0.5, 2 and 0, then 3 and 0.5, 4 and 1, 5 and 1.5. Looks kind of like that. So same thing, the slope of this line is 1/2. That's what's making it wider. The fraction makes it wider. The -1 is what's moving us over to the right. The domain is all real numbers. And the range this time, does it have a plus number on the outside? Nope. So it has a +0 again. So it's y is greater than or equal to 0. That's pretty much it. On your test, you'll have one just like this where it just wants you to graph it. I don't think I even ask you domain and range. On this part of the test, you have multiple choice ones that look like that, though. For number 3, we can go back in here. I already have my absolute value, so I'm just going to write over it -x plus 2. I'm going to delete these other numbers. Then the +1 needs to be outside of the parentheses. So with the parentheses is where the absolute value ends. Graph it. And this moved my graph up. So second table. Let's start at -2, 5. -2 up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -1, 4. 0, 3. 1, 2. 2 and 1. 3 and 2. 4 and 3. 5 and 4. The domain's still all real numbers. The range, it's a greater than, it's above the vertex here. So it's y is greater than or equal to, the number on the end this time is 1. So greater than or equal to 1. That's already the first half. It's nothing too crazy. We're just graphing a couple extra functions here. On the test, it's going to show you a picture, and it's multiple choice. You have to pick which one is the right equation. So it might say something like y equals the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 2. It might say x plus 3 minus 2. It might say -x minus 3 minus 2. It might say -x plus 3 minus 2. It might say x minus 3 plus 2, and tons of other stuff. So I'm just going to show you a few options of what you want to look for. First thing, you want to find the vertex. This is the point over 3, down 2. Since this is a -2, that is always going to give us some kind of graph with a -2 on the outside. So I can automatically say that for answers like this one, you would not want to do them because it has a +2. We need a -2 because I moved it down. Okay, the other ones, it could be a little confusing. I would say the easiest thing to do would be to graph it in your calculator. So let's just try this first one. X minus 3 with a -2 on the outside, and let's see what it looks like. I mean, that looks pretty close. We know that it's below the x-axis over here on the right side. Let's just test this other one to see if it's a possibility. X plus 3 minus 2. This one would not be it because my vertex is to the left of the x-axis. This one's to the right. So I know it's not this one. For the other two, they have negatives in them. I just want to show you this. I could insert a negative with the minus 3. This one's also to the left of the x-axis, so it's not that one. But this is the kind of the cool thing and the confusing thing about absolute value graphs. I changed this back to a plus to match this one. And this one actually is also a possibility. I'm obviously not going to show you both of those possibilities on your test, but I want you to realize that here the negative is with the 3, here the negative is with the x. They end up being the same thing because the absolute value is what makes the positives all work out. But you can graph them to see which one ends up being the right answer. Okay, then sometimes it just gives you an equation. It says, tell me domain or range. The domain of this, all real numbers, and of this one too. Those are easy points. The range is not all real numbers though. If I graphed this one and I had x minus 1, this one has a minimum, so my range would be y is greater than or equal to, there is no plus number on the outside here, so it would just be 0. On this one, if I graph it, it has a plus 5 on the outside, which moved the graph up. So I'd have y is greater than or equal to 5. And that is literally all we're talking about. These are the homework problems. That's all we got.